Now let's get into it. Dan Campbell spoke with the media today. He had a lot to talk about. Obviously, the Detroit Lions are dealing with a whole host of injuries, especially in that secondary. They had, 5 of their 6 starting cornerbacks or depth chart listed cornerbacks on the injured reserve or out in their last game, and they were kind of bare bones out there, but help is on the way from the Detroit Lions today. Reported on their Twitter, they have signed veteran cornerback Kendall Fuller to the practice squad. Kendall Fuller played in 11 games last year for the Miami Dolphins, where he had 50 tackles, faced 47 targets, led up 68% completion percentage, 350 yards, but only 1 touchdown, and he did have 7 passes defended for the Fins. Now, Kendall Fuller is an old man, and I'm not going to expect him to come in here and recreate the prime of his career, but this is a body that you can have some faith in. This is a body that you can put on the outside, and you know he's been there before and has done this before in the National Football League, so you don't have Hallett or whoever was out there getting cooked by these cornerbacks or being cooked by these wide receivers at the cornerback position. Now, I'm not going to say that Kendall Fuller is saving the season for the Detroit Lions or anything like that, but I think this is a good piece to bring in, a depth piece that's not going to cost you a lot and that has seen a lot of snaps in his National Football League career.
Yeah, I think he fits what the Lions are looking for with the defensive cornerbacks, and that's bend, don't break. And I think that is where this Lions defense is going to operate. They're going to say, look, we will have plays to give up. We will give up big plays, but we just can't give up that many. We just can't give up touchdowns. We have to limit them to field goals, or yeah, they can have a big play in a drive, but let's not let them have 3 big plays in a drive. And Kendall Fuller, to me, is somebody that, you're right, he's older. Look, Tampa Bay's weapons are not healthy right now, so this is a situation where, at least for this week in this very important matchup, I think he could do what needs to be done. And I'm just waiting more news on Terrion, man. Like, I really am. I don't want to get too far off the subject here, but to me, I think Kendall Fuller is a good stopgap option, and to me, one of the best you can get.
And DNC ENT says, I swear we've been asking about Kendall Fuller for a good about 4 years now, and honestly, it does. Ever since they have had this turmoil in the backfields, but maybe give Kendall Fuller a call. What are we going to do with Kendall Fuller? But like I said, he played 11 games for Miami last year, and it's not like he was this lockdown cornerback, but it's better than literally grabbing somebody who hasn't played in years. And I'm not expecting him to be a game changer, but this is even a piece that you could possibly rotate over to safety. He's an older cornerback. He is 30 years old, but he's a very good instinctive player, and he knows how to read a quarterback and read an offense. So maybe you don't want him straight up on the outside. Maybe you have him at the nickel. Maybe you give him some safety snaps, and you have a guy like Rock Ya-Sin as well who can rotate around. So it's just more depth for a defensive backfield that's been tarnished, with injuries so far.
And we've seen what Rock Ya-Sin looks like. It's not, overly great, but I'm expecting something similar out of Fuller. But the thing with Rock Ya-Sin is he made 40 starts, coming into this year. You got a guy in Kendall Fuller that has won a Super Bowl, and he's started 104 games in his career.
Yeah.
If this defensive line is doing its job and Aiden Hutchinson is able to break the double teams that he's going to get, Aleem comes back, I think Kendall Fuller can really help this defense right now at a tragic time where you're dealing with significant injuries at the cornerback position once again. I mean, like I said, 104 games started in his career. He's 30, Rock Ya-Sin's 29. Yeah. Like, it's not too big of a difference here, and I believe his experience is going to go a long way in this Kelvin Shepherd defense. If he gets a shot this week, I like his ability more than a lot of corners on this team right now. We'll see what kind of shape he's in. We'll see if he's ready to go, but I don't think we sign him just to sit on the practice squad. I think there's a really good chance that he plays as soon as this Monday, and he's going to help your team win a game.
I was going to say, especially when you consider the way that the Detroit Lions typically play defense to bend but don't break. You really just need somebody who understands your terminology, who has some familiarity or comfort with your schemes, and can just go out there and just hold the fort. Even if you give up some plays between the 20s, It's just realistically go out there and be a competent body. And that, to me, is what I look at. When I look at Kyle Fuller, at the very least, can you go out there and give us that? Yes. And when you're talking about the bodies that they've lost, you don't want to overstress or overwork or overput. You still want to make sure that there is some commonplace of depth on this team. And so for the Lions, especially with Brad Holmes, he's been a whole lot more right than us over the last 2 years. And so this is a move where I'm like, all right, this must be something that they see that can eventually help the squad.
I would not be surprised if Kendall Fuller was starting outside for the Detroit Lions on Monday night. Like Nick said, you don't have a lot of guys in this lineup that you feel comfortable with their skill and ability one-on-one on the outside. And the Detroit Lions are not going to change their entire defense just because of injury. They're going to be putting guys on islands one-on-one on the outside. And right now it looks like Trey Flowers and Kendall Fuller are going to be your best options out there. And that's kind of scary because that's two guys who you literally scooped off the couch. But when you look at skill set, when you look at ability, when you look at time in the league, these are the two guys who are legitimately outside cornerbacks on this roster. And whether it be Amik Robertson in at nickel and then you put Rakia Sin back at safety for a suspended Brian Branch, it's going to be a ragtag kind of Frankenstein secondary, but you're going to have to piece it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is, if this doesn't work, do you then have to explore the trade market at that point?
I don't know about have to because Brian Branch is only going to be gone for a week. Right. He will be back after his suspension. Right. They expect Terrion Arnold and other members to return to this team after the bye week. So I think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell,
even DJ Reed,
even DJ Reed you've got coming back. And I think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are going to ride it out with this kind of hodgepodge Frankenstein until they get some of their guys back rather than give up assets. And we actually have Dan Campbell talking about other injuries. We have more specific ones coming with Kirby Joseph and Ali McNeil, but here are some of the other guys in their timetable to return.
For Terrion and Avante, any chance this week or after the bye? Is that more likely?
I think they're both probably after the bye. I do.
Marcus Davenport is eligible to come off IR this week. Is that close to happening?
I don't see that. Not yet. He's doing well. He's getting better. We like where all those guys are at. I mean, we're going to be looking pretty good at the end of November, December, which is awesome. But I don't see him being ready before the bye for sure.
Just super quickly, because we haven't asked about him in a while. Malcolm had the cleanup procedure on the ACL several months ago, put him a little bit behind Aleem. How close are you looking at with starting his clock?
Yeah, hopefully we're hoping after the bye we can start rolling him out there a little bit, get him going.
So there you have it from Dan Campbell that he expects a return from guys like Terrion Arnold and Avante Maddox after the bye week. And that is not too far away. It's just around the corner when you really think about it. So, no, I couldn't see them giving up assets, trading away assets to bring in a guy when they're expecting these reinforcements to come here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think it's a question you have to raise because you are in this game with how the Bucs are playing, this game could be one of the most pivotal games on your schedule when it comes down to seeding in the NFC. So we'll see how this plays out, man. But I have confidence that the defensive line is going to perform better, which will in turn help the backs. And I think this team, just looking at what they've done throughout the last couple years, how many times does Dan Campbell went in that locker room and said, hey, look, we got a lot of injuries. We're just going to create chaos, and we're going to win this fucking game. And they've done it. And they've done it. They go for it on fourth down. Their offense is their defense in a lot of sense. So I do think that as long as this defense bends and not breaks, then this team will have a pretty easy time beating the Bucs.
Yeah, and like I said, we got a lot of Dan Campbell audio to get to throughout the day on Kirby Joseph, on Ali McNeil, on those Buccaneers, on this team and the crossroads they're at right now, and we're going to get into all of it. But Kendall Fuller signed to the Detroit Lions practice squad. Would not be surprised if he was starting outside for them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Monday night because him and Trey Flowers right now are the two guys that have the skill set, that have the ability and have the time in the league playing outside cornerback. And thankfully the Bucs don't have Mike Evans and Ibuka to go out there against these guys. But it's going to be a bunch of fourth stringers fighting it out in the defensive secondary versus the Bucs wide receiver core.
And I
hope
will
he
say
plays.
in the trade market, Chris, there's not a lot of pending free agents at the cornerback position that could truthfully do too much, you know, and add a lot of talent to your cornerback room. You know, I think Fuller is definitely our best option here. I mean, I'm looking at guys like Jair Alexander with the Ravens, Jeff Okuda, Greg Newsome, but he's not getting traded. The Jaguars, Darius Slay in Pittsburgh, he's not getting traded off a 4-1 team. So it's looking bleak in the trade market for pending free agents where you could move off of a 6th, you know, a 5th or a 6th to really try to get a guy in here. I don't think Brad is going to go that route. So hopefully Fuller is ready to step up for this Detroit Lions team that desperately needs an outside corner.